Hello everyone, welcome to Probability and Statistics for Data Science. Today we're going to talk about linear regression. In particular, we're going to define the variance explained by a linear model and show how to use it to evaluate the linear model. Let's get to it. We're going to talk about explained variance in the context of regression, where we want to estimate a response from multiple features. We're going to use an example that we already used in the video on ordinary least squares, where our goal is to estimate premature mortality measured by the number of deaths under age 75 per 10,000 people. Here, in each data point, the premature mortality is encoded by the color. So for these data points, for example, the number of premature deaths is around 1,000. For these data points, it's around 200 or 300. We want to estimate premature mortality as a function of two features. The fraction of adult smokers, which is this axis over here. For example, here these counties have about 40% adult smokers, whereas these ones have less than 10%. I'm not sure I made that clear, but here each data point corresponds to a county in the United States. The second feature is median household income, which is this axis over here. These counties have under $40,000 of median household income. These counties have more than 100,000. Now, if we want to consider linear regression models, as we saw in a previous video, there is a linear minimum mean squared error estimator, which is optimal in terms of mean squared error, that we can derive of the response if we model the response as a random variable y, given the features when we model the features as a random vector x with a number of entries corresponding to the number of features. In the video, we showed that this linear model is equal to, the optimal linear coefficients correspond to the inverse of the covariance matrix of the features times the cross covariance between the features and the response, and then there's an additive constant that accounts for the mean of the features and the mean of the response. Of course, in practice, we have to fit linear models using data. In order to do that, what we do is we apply the ordinary least squares estimator, which is an approximation of the linear minimum mean squared error estimator obtained from n data points. We have a separate video on it where we show that you can just essentially plug in the sample covariance matrix of the features, the sample cross covariance, and the sample means. Okay, but once you have done that, how do you evaluate this model? Our goal here is, once you have a linear model like this, which is the ordinary least squares model for our data, and maybe before getting into our goal, let me kind of describe it a little bit. So here, this is basically the linear coefficient corresponding to smoking, the linear coefficient corresponding to income, and the additive constant. If you put all of that together and plot it here in terms of contour lines where the estimated premature mortality is constant, you obtain these dashed lines here, where here the model is saying that the number of premature deaths would be 200 to 400, 600, 800, and so on. Once you have a linear model like this, how do you evaluate such a linear model? How do you quantify to what extent it explains the data that we have available? That's going to be our goal. In order to tackle that goal, let's remind ourselves that we already talked about this in the case where we had a linear estimator just from a single feature. That problem is called simple linear regression. In simple linear regression, we showed that we can decompose the response of interest into the linear estimator given the feature. Here I'm just calling the feature A to make a distinction with our general case where we have multiple features. Here there's just one single feature, that is this random variable A. We can decompose the random variable y into the linear estimator and the residual, which is just obtained by taking response minus the estimator. These two random variables are actually uncorrelated, which is important because then when we consider the variance of the response, we can separate it into the variance of the estimator and the variance of the residual. Moreover, when we plug in the optimal linear estimator, we realize that the fraction of variance explained by the estimator is equal to the square of the correlation coefficient. We call that quantity the R-squared coefficient, or the coefficient of determination. That tells us to what extent the linear estimator explains the variations in the response. Let's make this very clear with a picture. Again, we have a single feature and we have the response. We fit a linear model of the response given the feature. And this is the residual obtained by taking out each of these points and subtracting the corresponding linear estimate for that value of A. Now we can think, well, we can take a look at a histogram of the vertical coordinates here, which looks like this, and take the sample variance of those vertical coordinates. That's going to give us the sample variance of the response. We can do the same for the linear estimator. Okay, we can compute a histogram of the vertical coordinate here and take the sample variance, and the same for the residual. Okay, again, this is just here, this is just a histogram of the vertical coordinates of the residual. When we look at the sample variances, we realize that the sample variance of the linear estimate plus the sample variance of the residual is equal to the variance of the response. So this is the variance explained by the estimate. In this case, the variance of the response is 1, so immediately this is the R-squared coefficient, 0.56, which tells us to what extent the linear estimator explains the variations in the response. So what we want to do is generalize this to multiple features. In order to do that, let's gain some geometric intuition. So if you remember in the video on linear minimum mean squared error estimation, we provided a geometric perspective where we said, well, you can interpret, if you have centered random variables so that they have zero mean, you can interpret them as vectors within a vector space. In that vector space, the inner product between vectors is the covariance, and the squared distance is exactly equal to the mean squared error. So here, if we have a linear combination of features, every possible linear combination of these two features is going to form a plane. If we had more features, it would form a hyperplane, but here we just have two features that we can visualize things easier, or that's actually possible to visualize things, because imagine visualizing this when you have 20 features, it would be impossible. So anyways, we have this plane of possible linear estimators. Which one is the optimal one? The one that is closest to the response. How is this obtained? By projecting the response, performing an orthogonal projection of the response onto the plane of linear estimators, and that gives you the linear estimate. So here, the linear estimate, just to be clear, is this vector over here that is within the plane. And what's important is that if you look at the residual, which is the difference between the response and the estimator, it's orthogonal just by definition of a linear estimation as minimizing the mean squared error. Because of that, the linear estimate has to be the orthogonal projection, which means that it's going to be orthogonal to the error. If it weren't orthogonal to the error, you can find an estimator that has better mean squared error. Why is this important in this context? This tells us that the inner product between the linear estimator and its residual is equal to 0, which means that their covariance is equal to 0, which means that they're uncorrelated, which provides us with a decomposition of variance, just as in the case of a single feature. Hopefully this makes sense. Now we're actually going to prove that the covariance is 0. It's important, maybe before kind of doing math and getting lost in the math, to think a little bit about why this makes sense. If the covariance between the estimator and the residual was not 0, given that the estimator is a function of the features, this would suggest that we can do some kind of massaging of the estimator to estimate part of the residual linearly. And that doesn't make any sense, right? Because then that would mean that we can improve the estimator. Hopefully that makes some sense. That would be the intuition about why the linear estimator and the residual should be uncorrelated. You can also go to the geometric intuition about why they have to be orthogonal in this vector space of random variables, but let's just prove it mathematically. Okay, so we want the covariance between the linear estimator and the residual. That's just by definition, the mean of the centered linear estimator times the centered residual. What do we mean by centered linear estimator? We take the linear estimator and we subtract its mean. When we do that, here I've plugged in the linear coefficients and the additive constant of the estimator. We realize, and we had talked about this in previous videos also, that this linear constant essentially just accounts for the means. When we take away the mean of the linear estimator, all we are left is with the optimal linear coefficients inner product with the centered features. Okay? So that's what's going to go in here, the optimal linear coefficients times the centered features. And here we can, in order to center this guy, we can just center this guy and then this guy, right? Because we're subtracting the mean. So by linearity of expectation, we will just subtract the mean from y and the mean of the estimate. This will result in centering y and also centering this guy, which we know is equal to this, okay? Why have I written the inner product in the other way? Because now I'm going to apply linearity of expectation, and this guy and this guy are going to come out because they're not random quantities. And when those guys come out, what do I have left? The mean of the centered features times the centered response. What is that? The cross covariance. And here I have the mean of the outer product of the center features with themselves, which is the covariance matrix. We have a whole video on covariance matrices, which you can take a look at. Okay, so maybe I will highlight here that this guy is equal to the optimal linear coefficients are equal to the cross covariance times the inverse of the covariance matrix, in case you have forgotten. Okay, and this is where they appear, so that you don't get lost. And then this guy is equal to the cross covariance, and this guy is equal to the covariance. But because the optimal coefficients depend on the covariance and the cross covariance in that way, we get this cancellation here, where this is just equal to the the identity matrix. And this expression is going to be exactly equal to that expression. So they cancel out, and indeed the residual and the linear estimator are uncorrelated. This was a little bit painful, but again, it makes a lot of sense that the linear estimator and the residual should be uncorrelated. Hopefully I've convinced you of that, and we have even proved it mathematically. Now we can reap the rewards, which are that the variance of the response can be decomposed additively into the variance of this guy and the variance of the residual, the variance of the linear estimator and the variance of the residual, because they are uncorrelated. So that we have a very elegant decomposition of variance, where we can now ask ourselves how much variance is being accounted for by the linear estimator and how much is not being accounted for. That variance of that is not being accounted for is the variance of the residual. It turns out that the residual has zero mean, and this makes a lot of sense, because if the residual does not have zero mean, you can improve the estimator by accounting for that non-zero mean of the residual. Let's prove it. Here I have plugged in the residual. You get the mean of the response minus this expression, but now actually this guy is exactly equal to that. Okay, we have a derivation in the video of linear mean squared error estimation. So the mean of the residual is 0, which makes a lot of sense. Consequently, this is equal to the mean squared of the difference between the response and the estimator. What is that? The mean squared error. So we can decompose the variance of the response into the variance of the linear estimator and the mean squared error. Now we're interested in how much variance the estimator explains. The fraction of variance that is explained can be obtained by dividing the variance of the estimator by the variance of the response. But we know that the variance of the estimator is just equal to the variance of the response minus the mean squared error. So this is just equal to 1 minus the mean squared error divided by the variance. So if you have a linear model, you compute its mean squared, you approximate its mean squared error, and you approximate the variance of the response, you can divide the mean squared error by the variance, do 1 minus that, and that is going to give you the fraction of variance explained by the model. It's a generalization of the coefficient of determination, which in the case of one variable is super easy. You just take the correlation coefficient and you square it. With multiple variables, you have to work a little bit harder and use this formula. Okay, so now let's apply this to our linear model that estimates mortality, premature mortality from smoking and income. And we're going to actually use it to compare this linear model with two other linear models, one that only uses smoking and another one that only uses income. And this is actually commonly done to quantify to what extent a variable is important within the model. You cannot, and this is super, super important, you definitely should never rely on the values of these coefficients, which if you realize actually even depend on the unit that you're using for each feature. It's much better to see whether incorporating a variable improves the variance explained by the model. So let's take a look at what I mean by that. Now, the variance of the response in our data is equal to 1.35 times 10 to the 4. And here is the explained variance, which is the variance of the linear estimator for the tobacco model, the smoking-only model, income-only model, and tobacco plus income. So we see that if we take fractions here to compute the coefficient of determination, tobacco has a coefficient of determination, or R squared, of 0.51. It explains half of the variance in the response. Income explains 0.44 of the variance of the response. Because of the correlation between tobacco and income, when we put them together, they explain some more variance, but not perhaps as much as you would expect if they were uncorrelated. The explained variance goes up to 0.59. So here what we see is that tobacco actually, like smoking, explains a lot of the variance in premature mortality, but including income does produce a non-negligible improvement in the model. There's some part of premature mortality explained by tobacco, which is not, explained by income, which is not completely explained by tobacco. And this is an example of the importance of using this technique of adding variables or removing variables to the model to see the effect on the overall explained variance, as opposed to just looking at the coefficients. As I said, tobacco or smoking and income are actually highly inversely correlated. The correlation coefficient is minus 0.6. This makes it all the more important to not just compare these two models separately, but look at what happens when you include both variables within the model. Okay, so what have we learned? We have learned how to evaluate a linear regression model using its explained variance, and we have also derived the relationship between the explained variance and the mean squared error of the linear model. And that's all I have. Thank you very much.